Welcome everyone to the subcommittee resources subcommittee meeting. I'm Gerald Lewis, Title IX coordinator. We have Ms. Crable with us. Ms. Crable, did you want to share
Yeah,
thoughts or provide a welcome?
yeah, I did. Hey, thanks everybody, for joining us again. I'm really getting excited that we're going to be getting done with this soon. Jarrell's put together some good surveys, for based on all of your feedback from the last meeting and any feedback that you've given him since. So that's really all I had to say, except thank you and for coming, especially when I know this is like the last thing to do before spring break. So take her away, Jarrell.
Thank you. Well, hopefully, we won't take up too much of your time here. What I plan to do today is just show you all the final version in the Google form version of the survey, and just walk through it with you all, and then we will talk about what happens next if this substantive version is approved through the subcommittee. So I will take a moment to share my screen to show the version. And I'm only going to share one version, the middle school version. The middle school version and the high school version, they are identical, except for language that talks about either middle school or high school. But other than that, they're identical. So give me 1 second as I share my screen here. Okay, it looks like my screen is being shared now. So, all right. So as we discussed, this is the version for middle school. So based on our discussions of the survey, we thought it would be best to break it up into two different versions, one for high school and one for middle school. And so this is the middle school version. And I provided it to you all at the beginning, well, in advance. Are there any comments or questions that we can just go ahead and address at the forefront?
Jarrell, this is Stephanie Walker. You mentioned to me something about maybe doing bullet points for the race information or ethnicity information. Is that still something you feel strongly about?
Yes. So that is a point that I want to discuss. I'll just go ahead and go to it here. So in getting,
do we want to go through this page by page? What's going to be the most efficient way to ask our questions?
we can just start page by page, but if I knew there was a particular point that someone wanted to discuss, we could go ahead and start there. But we'll start from the top. So this is what it says from the top. I'm not going to necessarily read it to you all because you've had time to preview it, but I'll allow a few months for you all to review here and let me know if there are any comments or questions. But the main focus was, go ahead.
I had a question on this first page. I don't see this on your screen version, but on the one I printed out, right below where you've got the 3 asterisks and due to the potentially sensitive, blah, blah, blah. Then under mine, there's one more line that has an asterisk that says required right before the logo.
Yes, ma'am. Those differences are just in regards to how it was printed. So what's on the screen here is what is the final version.
Okay, I just didn't know what that required, what that meant on my version. So I don't need to worry about it?
No.
Okay, great, thanks.
So as we discussed in our other subcommittee meetings, we wanted to keep the top of this as short as possible to allow for students to not get too distracted or feel overburdened with participating in the survey. Are there any questions or comments about the introduction of the survey? Okay. So we'll continue moving down. This is just the logo and showing that its survey is being presented through the Title IX New Hanover County Schools. So as I discussed, this is a middle school version. These are all the middle schools that we have, to my knowledge. Someone let me know if I'm wrong, including Rowe, which I believe is 6 through 12, and Mosley as well.
Jarrell, I thought that Mosley and Rowe were only high school.
Rowe,
but I could be wrong.
row is 6 through 12 for sure. I believe Mosley is as well, but I'll double check Mosley. But I know that
Is
row is.
Is Virgo got middle school classes? I
That's
used
not
to
a New
back in the
Hanover,
day.
that's not
Oh,
a
it's
New
not
Hanover
anymore. It's
County school.
UNCW. Okay.
Right.
No.
Making sure.
Right,
So I'll double check, make sure that's accurate, but I'm
okay.
fairly certain that it is. So asking about what grade each student is in, common. And so this is the portion that Ms. Walker was speaking about. These two questions, I know we had previous concerns about the language of what is a person's gender or what their race and ethnicity is. We were going to leave it open-ended. After further reviewing questions, I think it would be best if we went back to a multiple choice version of these two questions. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to capture the data in the most efficient way possible. If we provide them in an open-ended format, that means that we have to actually go through and review all the responses to capture and categorize them and put them out in a chart type format. I think it's just best if we just go ahead and create the multiple choice questions that a person can select from to be able to get the data back easier than an open-ended question would.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I completely support the multiple choice, but particularly for gender, I would make sure that you add a category that is open-ended that says other. And the reason I say that is that at UNCG a few years ago, we did a big big statewide survey. And it was mainly aimed to the LGBTQ group, and it was open-ended, and we got over 50 different labels. People are into using all sorts of labels for themselves, and some people feel really adamant that if their label isn't present, they're not going to deal with the survey. So it would be respectful to have an open-ended option for anybody who feels strongly about an identity that's not listed.
So when you say open-ended, are you referring to other, or are you?
Yeah, you could just have other and then just a blank line where they could write in what they wanted to.
Yeah.
Then when you code it, then
I-
you could still count, X%, like 2% chose other. And then if you want to go back, you can look and see at what they said, but you don't necessarily have to.
I think that there's actually a barrier there with that option in Google Form. I can look into it, but I think that I don't believe that you can have multiple choice and a write-in in the same question. So that's something to think about.
That's why so it's not a write-in. It would be a box for other, like a checkbox for other.
So
would just label it
would
other.
not the option to write anything in.
Right. That's why I asked the question. And so I
Okay.
agree. We can put an other option on there, and I think we should also include an option that states, "I do not wish to answer."
Are we talking about, sorry, I joined kind of late. Are we talking about gender?
We are.
Yes.
So we're going. So what we decided was that we were going to have we do not want to have an open-ended question for gender or race or ethnicity, so we can capture the data in a better format than just an open-ended response. And so there was a suggestion to add the other term
I
on
would
there.
highly, highly suggest not using the other term. That makes it seem like male, female, and we are suggesting that everyone else falls under something else. And that is something that I myself, as an evaluator of our programs, have really challenged in our victim service field. Like, we strongly, strongly suggest not othering genders that fall outside of male and female.
So I think a good response would be, since we already have surveys that are out there, particularly for our middle school students through the work of the education subcommittee, we just straight borrow from the previous surveys to split that and be consistent with what we've already presented for terminology purposes. So Ms. Young, I can definitely reach out to you and get those terms to insert. So for consistency purposes, since we've already done surveys working with the middle school students, And I think that'll just be familiar with them for them, and allow us to get through this one piece of wrinkle here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is everyone okay with that? Dr. White, are you
Yeah.
okay with that? Since we've
Yeah,
already,
I think Jenna got on after we had the discussion. I totally agree that male, female, other would be inappropriate, but a much more extensive list that includes, lesbian, gay, trans, questioning, the whole list. And then you
Okay.
could have, and then what we find, if you have other after that, for
Okay.
somebody whose specific identity was not listed.
so a more exhaustive list than just a three. But either way, I will follow up with you, Jenna, to get those terms. And so the same for race and ethnicity as well. I know we said before we'll borrow from the like vacancies and things like that, but I want to go ahead and include multiple choice so we can get the data back in an easier format. So moving forward, these here are the definitions that we are going to utilize for sexual harassment. We wanted to include those at the beginning of the sexual harassment questions. So I'll allow just a few moments for you all to review those briefly.
Jarrell, can I ask you a question while everybody's reading?
Yes.
I was wondering, were we hoping to vote on this today? Because I know we go with probably about a month in between these subcommittee meetings. I mean, it was my hope that we could get something out of subcommittee for
That's my hope as well. The updates for gender and race and ethnicity, I don't necessarily think we need to reconvene a subcommittee meeting. I can just
Okay.
shoot you all that in an email and get your responses and feedback there, the final version.
Okay.
But I would hope today would be the final subcommittee meeting before we present it to the full committee at
Okay.
the April meeting on the 19th.
Thank you, Jarrell.
Any thoughts or questions about the definitions of sexual harassment here, the types of activity that we're trying to capture? All right. So this is the first question under the sexual harassment section. Asking, during your middle school years, have you experienced behavior that could be considered sexual harassment? Neither of the responses below. Any thoughts, concerns? Okay. So continuing forward, this is a two-part question. Based on your response to the question above, did you tell a trusted adult that worked for New Hanover County Schools about the sexual harassment? So it provides a yes, no, or I have never been sexually harassed, and that's so it can allow for someone that chose never to be able to provide a consistent answer.
So can I ask a question about this, just to clarify? I'm assuming that you limited this to a trusted adult within the New Hanover County school system. And so if they happen to tell somebody else, like a parent or somebody else out in the community, for our purposes, we're not interested in that.
Right. So we did want to limit this this particular question about the response to the activity to New Hanover County Schools person. So the first question, have you experienced behavior that could be considered sexual harassment? That's anyone, an employee, that off campus, that's broader, but we wanted the response in regards to what they did. Did they, to specifically speak to, did they tell New Hanover County Schools employee? So yes, that is what that is intended to do. So moving forward to the next section, Ms. Tucker, can you hear me?
Yes, yep.
And so I don't know how this works for formatting, but I do see if you see at the top it says yes for in this description area.
Yeah, that kind of was asking for basically a title. So I put
Mhm.
yes, as in you answered yes to that question,
Okay,
which brought you to this section.
so that's a formatting type of thing.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it possible to get at, I'm kind of putting words in Jackie's mouth, or maybe supposing what she was thinking. But can we add a question that says if you have not told New Hanover County Schools, oh, never mind, we already did. If we haven't told them, well, I was looking there, is there a response that says that we have told somebody else? Like, if you answered no, that you didn't report it to New Hanover County Schools, I don't see anything on here was I already told somebody else.
There is no option about that. Do we want to add an option that says?
Well, I'm just tossing that out for people's opinion. There's lots of reasons that you don't report, and maybe one of them was I didn't report it to anybody at school is because I already told somebody else, and I thought they were going to handle it, or just
well, we do have the question that
somebody else, and
we do have the question that asks about reasons for not reporting.
Right, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the list.
So you want to add that as an option under the list then?
Well, I'm just asking what anybody else thinks about that.
The one thing that I was thinking about, this is where I have to be really careful because the researcher in me always wants to know more. and for these purposes, you have to draw the line somewhere. But it might be helpful to know we have a lot of students who haven't told anybody, which
right.
gives you more insight than saying, okay, they didn't tell us, but at least they turned to somebody, even if we don't know who they turned to. So I do think maybe a good solution is under number 8, you could add an additional box. I told someone else.
I have a question. Yes. What is our obligation as we have students that report this, and some may report that they have been abused in some way? We have that information. Do we have an obligation to do something about it?
So we don't have our experts here today, but my belief is anytime we do hear incidents where someone has been assaulted or some type of incident, we do have an obligation to report those to DSS or the appropriate authorities. But we don't have our experts today.
So as it results from this survey, because we need to respond, if we have to respond, which I do agree with that, Attorney Lewis, that we should respond, time frame in response. So if these are trickling in and people and children are saying that they've been assaulted, what about time frame for our response?
So when it comes to the time frame for the response, that's why it's important that we try to capture these behaviors or this information in a way that's quicker for us to retrieve and go through. But I honestly think with the nature of these type of, we're not asking open-ended questions. So that's where we're still having to have some discussions about, are these considered reports or not? And so that's why at the bottom of this, we provided resources for individuals to be able to reach out to if they actually do want to report behavior, as opposed to reporting it through the actual survey itself. So there is a resource at the information at the bottom that talks about where individuals can go to get support, including, if they're actually looking to report particular behavior, how they can do so.
I guess to piggyback on, I guess my question with this though is that we're dealing with minors. If a minor says that I've been sexually assaulted, then we have an obligation to make a report.
I think we've been through this discussion.
Yes,
I think that,
we
we were here doing the cry. I mean, I'm talking about since we started to get the survey to this point. And I think we are looking at this as a climate survey more. Jackie White would be able to explain it a little bit better than I can, wording wise, but this is not supposed to be a tool for reporting, as far as I've been told.
And it's based on work that other people do. It's my understanding that in a very general anonymous survey like this, even though we find that some student has anonymously reported that it's happened to them, we don't have enough information to be legally obligated to go back and try to investigate that particular incident. We wouldn't even know necessarily who answered it without trying to track down their IP addresses and all that sort of thing. So
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
this kind of survey protects us from that. I think if I'm understanding your question, I think it protects us from that kind of reporting.
Thank you.
We
But
do
Yes.
have,
I'm not an attorney, so I'm just talking about what I have experienced as a researcher over the years doing this.
Mm-hmm.
right, and so that's why we added the information in there about reporting emergencies at the bottom, and also allowing individuals uh, to know that they can report behavior through Ethics 360 and whatnot. So there's no clear-cut answer, but we've tried our best to make it known objectively that this is not a reporting tool.
Yes, that is what, and I'm pretty certain that we got that answer from Deborah Stagner, our board attorney, as well. But we can always check on that. But that was where we were headed, was so that we didn't make this even give the semblance that it was a reporting tool.
Correct. This is not intended for a reporting tool. This is intended simply for a climate, school climate, and
Yes.
and student experiences. So this question about, so we want to add another answer to this question about the response to, has anyone experienced sexual harassment behavior? We want to add in this section here a response that says, that speaks to individuals reporting to non-New Hanover County School employees, correct? Or do we want to add that at the bottom of the question that states or asks, why did you not report? Ms. Crable?
I would kind of like to put it in if nobody has an objection to that.
Where do we think it should go?
In number 8.
Yeah.
I can't see the numbers here on this form.
Oh no, in
So
in
let
the
me pull up
question
the
number
paper
8.
form.
In question number 8. Just make another box.
I think
Question
she
number
means
8 is
where it says
if you answered
if you
no.
did not report, yeah, then why not?
Yes.
On page 4.
Yeah. Steph Crable, I'm just letting you know he doesn't have the numbered ones in front of him like we
Right.
do.
So
I'm just
I have a paper copy as well. So we're talking about
yeah.
the
Number
number
8.
8 that lists the multiple options for barriers to report.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Well, give me 1 second to make note of that on my paper copy.
I'll copy for you, Jarrell, if you want to look at it. Okay.
Okay, so moving back to the questions. Where were we at? Sorry for just going through the screen. If anyone has epilepsy here. And Jen, I have accidentally opened up this for editing, and I don't know how to fix it. So we will have to, we'll just leave that for now. And continuing to the next question. So if you answered yes to the last question, how comfortable were you with the response from New Hanover County Schools? Is anyone objected to any response or wants to edit this question at all?
So do we have the I did not answer yes as the last box, just to confirm that they did not answer yes?
Yes, that's a formatting reason, yes. And so when students actually take this survey, what will happen is that individuals will see, they won't see the full survey. They'll see sections and one question at a time. It won't be this, they'll have to go through multiple pages to get to the end. So those type of formatting questions will be resolved when it's actually in front of the students. But for the subcommittee purposes, looking at all of them, and this is the best way to do it. But for formatting, it will look different for students. So continuing to move forward. If you answered no to the last question, why do you not report the behavior? Please mark all that apply. And that's where we added the, because you told a non-New Hanover County Schools adult. So that's where we added that last option as well.
And Jarrell, are we just using the words not reported it, I told somebody else?
The original question, I do believe we went to the tell. Have you told? Yes. Did you tell?
Yeah.
So I did correct that, yes. So continuing on here. During your middle school years, have you engaged in behavior that could be considered sexual harassment? So we want to capture information that spoke to essentially perpetrators and other students engaged in this type of behavior. So they're able to select yes or no. And then the follow-up question is, if you answered yes to the question above, how often did you engage in the behavior that could be considered sexual harassment? Is everyone comfortable with the responses that are available? Rarely, sometimes, often, or I've never engaged in the behavior.
Is there a better word? I mean, are often and frequently the same word? Or do they imply different things?
What do you see frequently on here?
Well, I don't. I'm just
No.
asking for clarification.
I mean,
Frequently,
I don't know.
I think
I
that's
think often sounds
subjective.
fine.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
frequent.
I'm cool.
Okay, moving forward, with the next question we have, during your middle school years, have you witnessed behavior that could be considered sexual harassment? So this is trying to capture a little bit of bystander interventions here. And so the responses are consistent with the other questions, never, once or twice, more than twice, monthly, at least weekly. Is everyone comfortable, or are there any objections to those responses? Okay. Continue to move forward. If you have witnessed behavior that could be considered sexual harassment during your middle school years, what was your response? So this is trying to capture if there are bystanders to this sexual harassment behavior and what actions they took in order to respond to the types of conduct they witnessed. Ignored it, told the perpetrator to stop, told a trusted adult that worked for the school system or at my school, or provided help or support to the victim. Based on our conversation about number 8, do we want to add another question about told an adult that does not work for our school system?
The one
We
thing on
probably
that one,
should.
yeah, that's a good idea. Also on that one, you said mark only one response, but it's possible that they did more than one thing. They could have told the school system, they could have told somebody else, and they could have also tried to support the victim. So do you want multiple, the option for multiple answers?
Yeah, I agree. That was something I thought when I read it. So yeah, so give me 1 second to mark this on my sheet here.
While you're marking that one thing, they'll see what other people on the committee think about. But once you get this thing all formatted and ready to go live, do you want to do a beta test and allow some of us to actually work through it so we can see what it's like when it actually shows up online? I'd be interested.
It's a great idea.
But I don't want to get too far ahead because it still has to be approved substantively before we get to that point. So
I'm a forever optimist, so.
So I know we talked about having the student focus group review some of the questions and things like that. So let's at least get it through the Title IX committee part and then test it and see if there's any revisions that we need to do after that. And I'm still trying to find it on my sheet here. That's why I'm quiet. Give me one more moment.
What are you looking for, Gerald?
The question about bystander response.
It's number 12.
Thank you.
Okay.
And so adding multiple options, we can allow for multiple selections here. Ignored it, told the perpetrator to stop, told a trusted adult that worked for the school system, provided help or support to the victim, and then the new option, I told a non-New Hanover County Schools adult. Are those the responses that we want to have on this list?
Yeah, and can we make the word say told another trusted adult? Yeah, just to kind of keep our language consistent.
Yeah, I will add it in a format that's
Okay.
consistent with the language. I was just trying to capture substantively what we were trying to add.
Okay.
All right. So that actually ends the section on sexual harassment. So the next set of questions speak to gender harassment. So I'll give you a few moments to look at the definition of gender harassment or gender-based harassment, and let me know if you all have any thoughts or comments. Okay, based on the definition of sexual harassment and gender-based harassment, do we think we have a pretty good understanding of what those two differences are? Okay, so it's the same set of questions, but it just simply asks about gender-based harassment. So I won't go through these questions. I'll just take the revision from the sexual harassment pieces and put them under the gender-based harassment pieces as well, if that makes sense. Because they're the same exact questions. It's just instead of saying sexual harassment, it's gender-based harassment. Are there any overall other thoughts or concerns about the survey before it leaves the subcommittee? Does it capture what we're trying to get from a climate purpose? So I'll go to the end here. And so we did add information about resources. I'll allow you all to review those.
So back to the still in the gender harassment, do we want to modify number 14 question, or maybe it's the one that says, based on your response to the question above, did you tell a trusted adult that works for New Hanover County School Systems about the gender-based harassment? Do we need to add
so I will copy the same corrections or updates from the sexual harassment section, copy and paste it right into the.
Okay, great.
So it'll be consistent between the two. And so the resources section, do we have any comments, or Ms. Jordan, do you have any comments about other pieces that you think we should add, or that we should add here to the resources section? Under the Google Forms, you can add. You're typing it in the chat?
Okay. Yeah, well, I can go ahead and just say it. Is there a way we can put the the school counselors and social workers as a resource? Of course, we wouldn't have to put their names, but just you can always talk to your local, to your personal counselor or social worker as a resource.
Yeah, so would you like that in the actual resources section of the wording here? We can't add hyperlinks and things like that. Google Forms does not allow you to do so, so that's why we have the actual website. I wish that we could just put a hyperlink that a student can click on for resources, but it doesn't format that way to allow us to do so.
Maybe just in the description Yeah, up in that section.
That section there. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I just had a quick question, Jarrell. Would it be helpful or not, and then the committee can let me know, of putting just a tiny description of each one of those, because I see them, but Title IX, I mean, whoever's doing it might not understand. Maybe one resource is better than the other, but like if you're not really sure and you're looking at them, like Ethics 360, I might not know what that is, or I might not know what Title. I mean, I was just thinking maybe like a little tiny brief sentence beside it. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Tell me if it's not.
I think the way it is now, it does look a bit confusing, but I think that's some Google issue with the formatting. I really wish we could provide, hyperlinks. So maybe we circumvent that by adding a little bit clearer definitions to certain areas about what they can access in these particular resources.
Like maybe number them, like 1, 2, 3, and then number 4 would be your school counselor.
Well, I'll go ahead and add the school counselor piece just to the paragraph.
Okay.
But I mean, like, for example, under where it says Title IX website, maybe add a description about what types of resources are on the Title IX website.
Yeah.
And then also include the link.
I think I'm kind of in Miss Jordan's camp, is that I would like to see resources, guidance counselor resources, called out as not lumped in that paragraph.
Okay, so we want to separate that.
I would. Is that what you were thinking, Miss Jordan? I mean, just to make sure kids know that maybe they don't want to go on a full-blown report, but they do need to talk to somebody.
Well, I think my thought process, if you just put your school counselor or social worker, then that student would identify who they already may hopefully have a relationship with.
Right.
And access support there. Just kind of a reminder that if you need someone that you can go to your counselor or social worker. I just want to make sure that they're listed somewhere as a resource.
Yeah, I agree.
Ms. Tucker, do you know if there is a way that we can add a list or a document that students can utilize or retrieve that can have the names and numbers of their local school counselor? If there's a way to format
Do you
that
mean
in?
that they could like access while they're taking it?
At the end, almost like a hyperlink, but we don't have the option to hyperlink here. So do you know of any other?
I'm not sure. I can play around with it though, for sure.
Okay.
But in the event, hey, this is Julie. In the event that, employees change, I still think it's good just to have that in the area under resources, just to have, a reminder, see your counselor or social worker at your school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
I
I wouldn't
agree.
have a problem putting it in that resource paragraph, if maybe it's like its own next line with a bullet next to it or an asterisk or something. Because
Maybe put it above. Students can use the links like below, but right above that, maybe on its own as its own line. Maybe.
Do we
I mean, if
feel
you
that
want it to, yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Ms. Walker. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just saying, if we want it as a kind of to stand out a little bit more, but we don't want to, we don't have like a hyperlink or whatever. We could still bold it or, reach out to your counselor, and then under that can be the other resources, because it'll stand out that way without creating a whole new box for it, for having it lost in the resource paragraph.
And so we said put it where? I'm sorry.
It's okay. After the paragraph, and like just, enter, and just have its own line before it gets to the students. Can you also use these links, resources below? And
what if we add to the top of this paragraph before the equity statement?
I think either way, I think the point I think for everyone was to highlight it, have it highlighted in a way that it won't be missed, like lost in the paragraph.
Okay.
I don't have a preference. I don't know if anybody else does, but I don't.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely needs to stand out. I'll work with Ms. Tucker to figure out there are ways that we can get to make it stand out a bit more. But we agree, we definitely want to continue having the Title IX website on there. A link to it.
I think that's fine. Personally, I mean, I like the fact that's a resource. Of course, it's a resource. Yeah.
Okay, and this is the resource for reporting a concern. I do wish that you could directly click the link, but you can't. And also information about downloading the Say Something app. And so those are our list of resources. I'll work with Ms. Tucker to get the actual format to make it bolder for student support type resources such as counselors. So overall, this is the survey. At this point, any other final thoughts or concerns? I will update these edits and send out and email out another version for time's sake, so we don't have to have another meeting, so it can get to the Title IX committee as a whole quicker. And then once it gets approved through that area, we'll test it through focus groups and through ourselves as a committee. And then
So are we thinking that, will we be ready, based on these few changes that we're making? Can we be ready for the April board meeting on April the 13th? Or should we put this on the agenda to be reviewed for the May?
it's
gotta
going to
go
need
through
to be
Title
made
IX.
because it has to go to the Title IX committee still.
Oh,
and
the whole
that's not
committee, yeah,
right.
duh, okay,
Mhm.
sorry.
And we also want to do the focus group.
Okay,
So
all right, so we'll
May
do,
at the earliest, but either way, when we set our goals, we were looking at the fall at the earliest anyway.
yeah, fall to do it, but for May to get it before the whole board.
Right, and so my hope is that the board will be able to approve it substantively, like that's the final version, and then the next piece of work is the technical aspects of how we actually go about releasing it, but no more discussions about the substantive wording or questions or what the survey looks like.
Okay,
So that's my hope.
Mine too.
If there are no other thoughts, I definitely appreciate all your hard work on this. I know it's been a long time, but I'm really excited about the work that's going on. The subcommittee, the work of the Title IX committee as a whole, moving forward. This is not subcommittee information. Just as a reminder, we did send out those membership questionnaires this week to try to figure out interest in continuing to participate on the Title IX committee as a whole, and also added options for individuals to select which subcommittees they prefer, including the new athletic subcommittee. So those responses are coming in. Please continue to get those rolling in. I don't remember the date that we put on there, but I think it was the Friday before our next Title IX committee meeting. So just
Jarrell?
yes.
I just had a question. I know I asked Dr. Smith to send you kind of an application that we use in the EDI committee, and whether that helped you or not, or whether you feel like you have an application process down yet.
Yeah.
I guess we could talk about it at the next meeting.
Yes, we can talk about it at the next meeting, but I did use those in designing the questionnaire, so yes. Thank you.
yeah, and there's also a family communications parent application that we can look at, maybe merge the two somehow.
Yeah, so yeah, those are definitely the broader committee discussions, but I just wanted to
Okay,
brief reminder to go to your emails and check that out if you haven't had the opportunity to look at the questionnaire. That's for current members that have served on the committee to continue to test their interest moving forward as we're trying to reorganize. All right. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll leave it to you, Ms. Cravel.
yeah, this is a great meeting, guys, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. And Ms. Tucker, thank you so much for being our subject matter expert to the subject matter expert on getting this survey in a format that we can use. So
No.
yeah,
Yes, thank you.
Stephanie Walker, any closing comments as well?
No, I had one logistical question. If we're going to look at the changes, are we going to vote via email on this, or I know we're not going to meet yet before then. So I just was wondering, does it have to vote to come out of committee? Or are we all happy with it and just saying with the changes made, then we'll talk about it at the next committee meeting?
I think it's an informal consensus that
I think
we've been
consensus
utilizing.
would be fine. I don't think we need to vote.
Correct.
Okay. No, I'm good. I'm good with
But
that. Then I didn't know.
If there are changes, I'll definitely let you all know what those changes and suggestions were.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for everyone's work on this, especially all the experts, whatever expertise you brought. It was all good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you all have a good holiday coming up, and we'll see you all on the 19th for the Title IX committee meeting. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, is the 19th the real date?